TJ Legel. I am the owner of FarmStrong LLC. And today we're going to walk you through how to install our C-Series two-wheel drive Chevy Square Body Cummins installation kit, start to finish in this here frame. So let's get to it. All right. So first thing, if you order the full complete kit from us, it's going to include everything you need to install a 6VT 24 valve common rail Cummins with an NV4500, G56, NV5600, 47RE, RH, lots of different options. We include all the engine mounts and transmission crossmember for the C series. So we'll first go through everything that's included in the box. So we'll start here. Transmission crossmember and mounting bracket. All of your hardware. So we include all the hardware you need to do this, so you don't have to go searching around for all the right hardware. Transmission frame side bracket, transmission crossmember frame side bracket. One side. Here's our other side. We've got our 5th generation Ram engine isolators. We'll go through a little explanation as to why we designed our kit around these later. Some additional brackets to mount the engine mounts to the existing crossmember. At your passenger side engine mount. And driver's side engine mount. Now these can only go in one way. It's pretty obvious, you'll see, but basically this little flange here, or notch here, if you will, that was always going to face forward. So these two mounts are basically mirror images of each other. And then full crossmember. There you go. That's everything you should expect to see when you receive your kit. Always check everything over. If you have any missing parts, just let us know. All right, before we get into the install though, I do want to go over why we used the isolators that we used, and kind of the idea behind it, and why we think it's a little bit better than some of the other options out there. So I'm going to start right here with the stock Chevy isolator. So this is what you're typically going to see on any square body, that had the 454 or whatever in it. And I know there are some really cheap mounts out there, commonly called the Summit mounts, because you can get them from summit.com. But those basically reuse the Chevy isolators. That makes for a pretty easy install, but I hear a lot of people having issues with these down the road, where they wear out, and even to the point where they actually try to fill these voids with some I don't even know, some silicone, and these are just, the actual rubber isolating material is pretty small compared to the other options. So that's the reason why we just kind of said we don't even want to bother with these things, so we'll just get rid of them. Next option could be the 1st generation Dodge Ram isolators. So this is what came on the D250s with the 6VT 12 valve Cummins. These are okay, but we actually use these on the 4BT, our 4BT kits, which works out great. But with the 6VT, there's just a lot more weight, and you want something a lot stronger. For the 4BT, these are awesome. They work great. They do a good job of reducing vibration when used correctly. But for this kit, we wanted something a little bit better to handle some high horsepower 6-cylinder from Cummins engines. So not going to use that one. Then we come to the 2nd generation Dodge, and again, we kind of wanted to use Dodge isolators because they're tried and proven, right? You can get them, you can get these isolators, pretty much isolators for any of these, Rock Auto or what have you, standard parts that you can get just about anywhere. And we wanted to use isolators, that had been used by OEMs because, they put a lot of engineering and effort into figuring these things out. So we might as well use them. So these are the 2nd gen isolators. You can see they got quite a bit of rubber, so they do a pretty good job of isolating. The main issue with these is, well, one, they're a little big, but second is they're not actually symmetric. So you can see this mounting face is almost lines up with the back face of this mounting boss, whereas this one is more here. And with the square bodies, the frame rails are pretty narrow. So, we wanted to use isolators that were symmetric so we could use them on both sides of the engine. In this case, we wouldn't be able to do that with this isolator. This is the passenger side isolator. The driver's side isolator is much longer to offset the engine towards the passenger side. Just wasn't going to quite work out for how we wanted to do this. So forget that one. Now we've got the 3rd generation isolators. So these are pretty compact. They work out okay, but there's still not a whole lot of rubber there. I'm not really sure why they did that on the 3rd gen. I've got a 3rd gen Dodge outside. It works fine. But if we were going to use this, we'd have to build a whole additional mount to actually mount this to the engine. Again, which is fine. But when looking at 4th gen and 5th gen mounts, that work's already done for us with some nice castings. So we decided to not use this one, again, also because of the rubber. If you look at these side by side, get this in the camera well enough, you can see just how much more isolation rubber there is with the 4th generation mounts compared to the 3rd generation. And that's just what's going to give you a smoother ride, smoother running engine. So forget about 3rd gen. And then we've got the 4th and the 5th gen. So again, this kit will work with the 4th gen. These are a little more expensive. These are cast iron housing, but overall their dimensions are pretty much the same as the 5th gen. We like the 5th gen because they do have a larger inner insert. They've got about the same amount of rubber, isolating rubber, and these nice cast aluminum housings. So, yep, that's the reason we went with the 5th gen. These are going to give you basically the best, smoothest running Cummins possible. So there we go. All right, so the first step is a big step, and basically you want to get rid of all of the existing engine crossmember or engine mounts. Get yourself a nice clean frame like we have here. I'm not going to go through all the details of doing that. Everything's riveted in, so you're going to spend a few hours with an angle grinder cutting out some rivets, unbolting some stuff, getting everything out of there. You want to start with some nice, fresh, clean frame rails, and this is a good time to do some rust repair or anything else, as we know a lot of these chassis are pretty old and dirty. So you'll see that we removed all the hardware on the inner parts of these frame rails, including these 3 bolts on either side for the cross member. You gotta be a little bit careful because once you do that, this cross member, or this frame, is just kind of sitting on this cross member. So you can move it around a little bit. So just be aware of that. Be a little bit careful. Our engine mounts are actually going to come, if you're going to do the bolt-in option, they're going to bolt up through these holes. So we actually grab this frame rail through this cross member, through the frame rail holes, through the brackets for the suspension, and at the top of the frame as well. So we're bolting, basically in 3 different dimensions, and makes for a really, really strong installation. Now, also, one thing about these C chassis that's a little bit different than the K series is they have a pressed dimple right here, which gets in the way of the engine mount. So what you're gonna need to do, just get your angle grinder and just cut around the edges of that dimple and knock it out. And our engine mount's gonna go up over top of that. If you'd like, once we get there, you can weld that mount in from the backside here to add a little bit of strength. But either way, both sides, gonna cut that dimple out so you've got a nice flat mounting surface here. All right, so your next step is grab an engine mount. Doesn't really matter which side. Once you've got all this cleaned up, make sure you've got, you might have to hit this with a flapper wheel, kind of knock off some residual rust or what have you. You want to make sure everything's nice and clean here because these engine mounts do fit in pretty tight. So you're going to want to push these in and get yourself a little rubber mallet, tap it in, get all your holes lined up. So now you got your mount sitting in there. We do not provide the hardware to actually bolt these in because most of it you're going to be reusing the existing hardware that you pulled out. So we're reusing all the same holes so you can reuse some of the hardware. The purpose of this video, we're going to throw in some new hardware. At this point though, you're going to want to just throw like maybe 3 bolts in per engine mount, just to kind of hold them in place, finger tight. I really like to always get everything in place finger tight so you have an option to move things around a little bit if you have to, and get everything sitting in the chassis, your whole engine, drivetrain. Make sure you're not having any issues with clearance. All right, so next up, you're gonna find these 2 brackets included with the kit, and these are to bolt the engine mounts to the cross member. So again, they are mirror images of each other. So we're gonna put this guy in here, this orientation, and then this one here, this orientation, and then 2 bolts this way through the engine mount, and then 1 bolt down through the cross member, and the same thing on the other side. We're going to do that with the included hardware. So find this bag of bolts. Should be 6 bolt and 6 nuts. All right, so now we're going to move on to the transmission cross member. So you want to find your 2 side brackets. There is a left and a right to these currently. We're probably going to change that in future designs. There's a little bit of an offset. So you want to take a look at these, and you should have, should be a chamfered corner at the top of these plates. So you want that chamfer to be towards the top on both sides here. There we go. All right, so now you're going to find your bag of 4 sleeves, another bag of 4 bolts and nuts, and of course your cross member. So for now, I'm just going to sit this bad boy up in here, line it up with your bracket. Don't worry too much about position yet. Oh, remember to open your bag of bolts first. You don't have to worry about getting the sleeves in yet. We will get to that. Right now, again, we're just trying to get everything fitting in here loosely. Give ourselves some play to get everything right where we want it. Put that in there. Put 1 nut on each bolt just to hold it in place. Now when we go to do a final final installation, that's when you're going to put these sleeves in here. Obviously, the bolts are going to go through the sleeves. And the whole point of these is that when you tighten everything down, you're going to tighten them up against those sleeves, and everything's going to compress against them. Once you get everything exactly where you want it, because these holes are slotted this way and up and down, so you got a little bit of play. So once you get everything right where you want it, have those sleeves in there. I always recommend putting a little tack on either end of the weld tack on either end of those sleeves just to keep them in place. So that way down the road, when you try to pull your cross member out, those sleeves aren't going to fall out. They'll stay where you want them. And also, forgot to mention, when you're installing a cross member, it is important to notice that this plate welded in here is actually welded at an angle. So hopefully you can see it in this video, but there are 2 notches here, and you want those notches towards the front. And if you look at it from the side, you'll be able to see that that plate is actually angled backwards, and that's to account for the angle of the drivetrain. So this whole drivetrain is going to sit in about a 5-degree angle front to back. So this plate is actually angled a little bit to account for that. All right, so we've got our drivetrain hanging here on our crane. So next thing you're going to want to do is install the engine isolators. So we've got 8 bolts provided in the kit to mount the isolator to the block. Take note of the position of this isolator. So there are 2 different mounting locations on these Cummins blocks. You can see these holes here. So you could potentially mount this isolator in this position or this position. You're going to want to use the frontmost position. Now, the reason we did that is that some of the older 12 valves do not have these back mounting holes. So in order to kind of keep this kit the same for 12 valve, 24 valve common rail, we had to use this front mounting location. So that's the same for all the different blocks, but there are some nuances with some clearances down here on the common rails, but also the common rails, your ECU is going to be mounted down here. So you're going to have to relocate that ECU somewhere else on the block. You might be able to turn it up here. That is something we're going to offer in the future. We just haven't gotten there yet, but it's relatively easy to kind of move that ECU around and allow us to use the same kit across a bunch of different platforms. So again, you're going to use the zinc coated yellow bolts to bolts on your engine isolators, and then you should have 2 more long bolts left over. So these are the same bolts that you use in the engine cross member. You're going to use them here as well. I like to feed one through, get a nut on it, do that on both sides, and you'll see the reason we do that is when you go to lower this whole assembly down into the frame rails, you're going to be able to just drop that straight into the engine mounts. All right, so pretty easy so far, right? I mean, we're like 10 minutes in and we've already got all of our engine mounts in. So next step is to drop the whole drivetrain into the chassis. And I know what you're thinking, said this in a previous video as well. You make it look real easy when you just got a bare frame and a nice crane to drop everything in. Well, that's the way I recommend doing a lot of this stuff. If you're going to be doing a square body, you're probably going to want to, get the whole body off anyway. Check out the chassis, clean it up, repaint it. You're going this far into a swap, you might as well clean up your chassis while you're at it. If you are not doing that, or say you've already got a restored square body or something, I definitely recommend unbolting the front chassis mount or front cab mount and loosening the bolt on the rear cab mount. And you're going to jack up the front of that cab in order to get you a little more clearance as you try to fish this engine and drivetrain into the chassis. just gives you a little bit more room. Once you do that, then you can drop everything back down. But just remember to keep the rear bolt of the cab in, 2 rear bolts of the cab installed just loose so that the cab can't move. Make sure you don't go too far that you hit the bed of hit your bed. Maybe you'll have to shift your bed back a little bit. But this makes it super easy to drop in the chassis or drop in the drivetrain and show you guys how to do it. So, and if you don't, I mentioned this again for another video. This crane, overhead gantry crane from Harbor Freight, is a lifesaver. We don't have a lift in this shop, so we use this thing as kind of our pseudo lift, if you will. We use it for everything. It's a really, really great investment for $700, and it is way better than any engine hoist I've ever used. I've done lots of engine replacements with this hoist rather than a cherry picker. Take the hood off your truck, and then you can pull. I mean, I have a 3rd gen Dodge Ram. I have pulled my entire drivetrain out of my Dodge all in one piece with this crane, no problem. So definitely look into it if you don't have one. So we're going to drop this thing in, and we'll speed up the video. All right, so we got this thing hanging in here. Not quite all the way in yet, but right now we want to try to figure out the position of our transmission crossmember. So since this kit has been designed for NV 4500, G56, 5600, 47RE, RH, the distance of this crossmember is going to change depending on what drive or what transmission you're using. We're obviously using a Dodge NV 4500, and this bracket included with the kit will bolt straight up to the mounting plate of the transmission. So we'll throw a few bolts in there, and then you're going to grab your transmission isolator. That's going to go down through the studs, or the studs are going to go down to the holes on the crossmember. Usually like to throw some nuts on there, again, just to kind of hold it in place. And then we'll put our plate on there, and then bolt the plate to the transmission isolator. All right, so now we're just going to lower this whole thing down into the mounts. We're going to keep an eye on our bolt on this side and on this side, and get those bolts to drop down into the slots. And at the same time, make small adjustments to this cross member to make sure we get our holes aligned. Obviously, also, you want to take measurements, probably back from that cross member to the transmission cross member to make sure you're keeping everything square. You're keeping that transmission cross member square. And yeah, just drop her down, get yourself lined up best you can. You want to get a few, definitely get a few bolts started in there. So we can get a bolt started in here. Again, keep everything loose, just hand tight. You get a little bit of play when you're doing this stuff to get your bolt lined up. See, we've got that side in. Side's coming down. Got this bolt hole lined up. There you have it. Is not hitting, should have good clearance there. Make sure you're not hitting your steering arm here. Should have good clearance. Get a good spot of that. Should have about a 1/2 inch clearance there. Make sure your starter is clear. You're not gonna have any issues getting that in and out. And again, get your transmission crossmember square. And then you have the option of, you can either drill holes through your frame rail at the four corners of these mounts and bolt them in, or you can go ahead and plug weld those, add a few welds along the sides as well. The option is up to you. But that is about it. So again, when we designed this kit, we wanted to make it super easy for any DIY installer to be able to do this on their own and end up with a professional level installation. Obviously, this is a two-wheel drive, so this transfer case is not needed. This is just our mock-up assembly that we use for all of our test fits and videos. So you won't need that. Make sure that your drive shaft is clear. You shouldn't have any issues coming out the back of the transmission. Should have a nice straight run back to your axle. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, my email address is info@farmstronginc.com, and always get back to you to help you out. So send us pictures, send us videos. We always love to see our customers using our product.